Welcome everybody to this session of statistics for the topic of hypothesis testing. Step 1. State the null and the alternate hypotheses. So now, before we start, let's think about the word hypothesis. What's the meaning of this? So now, according to vocabulary.com, hypothesis in science, a hypothesis is an idea or explanation that you then test through study and experimentation. Outside science, a theory or guess can also be called a hypothesis. So we are looking here at keywords: idea, test, explanation, theory, or guess. All of these are other ways of saying hypothesis. So now, for statistics, hypothesis is a statement about the value of a population parameter, whether it is the population mean or the population standard deviation, developed for the purpose of testing. Hypothesis testing is a procedure based on sample evidence and probability theory to determine whether the hypothesis is a reasonable statement. So now, hypothesis testing has 6 steps. In this session, we're going to concentrate on step 1, state the null and the alternate hypothesis. What is the null and the alternate hypothesis? The null hypothesis is a statement about the value of a population parameter developed for the purpose of testing numerical evidence, and it is represented by the H0 or the H null. Alternate hypothesis is a statement that is accepted if the sample data provides sufficient evidence that the null hypothesis is false. This alternate hypothesis is represented by the H sub 1. Now, important things to remember as we create our two hypotheses, H0 and H1. First, H0 is the null hypothesis. H1 is the alternate or alternative hypothesis. It is usually the claim, what we're trying to test. 3. H0 and H1 are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So this is all the way from our very first, one of our first sessions. Mutually exclusive means you can either do one or the other. You cannot do both at the same time. And collectively exhaustive is when you do H0 plus H1, that's equal to 1, meaning you have all the probabilities are here. A random sample of size n is used to reject or accept the H0. Equality symbols are always part of H0. Equal sign, more, and more than or equal to or less than and equal to. All of these equal signs, any equal sign will always be part of H0. Now, the opposite signs are part of H1. So you have equal to and not equal to. So not equal to is part of H1. If you have more than and equal to, the opposite symbol is less than, and that's part of H1. And if you have greater than and equal to something, or less than and equal to something, then the opposite symbol, which is more than, will be part of H1. In problem solving, we need to look for keywords in the exercises and convert them into the hypothesis testing symbols that match these keywords. So now, which keywords are we talking about? These are the keywords that we need to look for. In the exercise, through the exercise itself, you need to recognize whether you're talking about a less than symbol, more than symbol, more than or equal to symbol, less than or equal to symbol, equal or not equal to. And accordingly, figure out if whether it is H1 or H0. For example, if you have less than, lower than, smaller than, fewer than, decrease, or reduce, we are talking about the symbol of less than, and that will mean that that is part of your H1. your alternate hypothesis. Or if you have words than, more than, higher than, bigger than, greater than, increase or enlarge, we are talking about a more than symbol. And that means we're talking about H1, the alternate hypothesis. If they're giving you something on the exercises where they tell you that they're not the same as, not equal to, has changed from, or is different from, we are talking about the not equal to sign, which again is the H1 symbol. Now, when we're talking about the H0, once you have one of the symbols, then you can match it to the other. For example, let me change the color here. You have less than for the H1, the alternate hypothesis. Then we mentioned here that the H1 and the H0 are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So if the exercise is giving you less than for H1, then by default, your H0 will be more than and equal to. And this more than or equal to will be signaled to you in the exercise if they're talking to more than or equal, no less than, at least. Now, let's see if you're talking about an H1 where it is more than, then by default, your H0 will be the opposite, less than or equal to. All the equal signs are always part of H0. So, words that tell you less than, no more than, or at the most, again, they're talking about less than or equal to symbol, which is part of H0. Lastly, if your exercise is talking about the not equal to sign, then by default, H0 will be equal to. Or the exercise can give you keywords like exactly, equal to, has not changed from, or is not different from. Again, that's the equal sign, which will be part of H0. All right, let's work on this exercises here where we're setting up the step 1. So we're trying to find these keywords to be able to set up our H0 and H1. YallaMotor.com estimates the value of a used 3-year-old Nissan Patrol is $194,000. Ahmed wonders if the average price of the 3-year-old Patrol in Abu Dhabi is different from $194,000. Different from. Now, let me erase this here. All right, different from, right here. So what is different from? Not equal to for my H1. And that means for my H0, it will be equal to. So equal and not equal to. So when I have my H0 and H1, then we are talking about the average price. Mean, equal, and not equal to. Equal is always part of your H0. So equal and not equal to what? 194,000. That's what we're trying to test. What we're trying to figure out. Is it equal to 194,000 or not? This is the first step. So in this session, we're only work through the first step of the 6 step hypothesis testing. Another exercise here. The standard deviation of the contents of a 64-ounce bottle of detergent using a certain filling machine is known to be 0.23 ounce. The company purchased a new filling machine and wants to know if there is less variability with the new filling machine. Okay, why is it variability? Because we're talking about standard deviation. Less variability. Okay, so what is this less variability talking to us about? Less variability. Less is part of H1. So, and we're talking about standard deviation here. So H0, H1, and we're talking about standard deviation, less variability. Less is less than symbol, which is part of H1, and less than, we said here, 0.23. If this is less than, then this one is the opposite, which is more than and equal to 0.23. Again, your equal sign will be always part of H0. Alrighty, let's see one more here. The amount of tomato paste in small containers is expected to be 125 grams. This is the mean weight. But the manager is concerned that the containers are filled with more than the mean amount of paste. Write the correct hypothesis. So we are concerned that we are having more than what it should be. So more than, or larger to. Let me change my color here. Larger to, more than is talking about more than, which is part of your H1. And if you have more than for H1, then for H0 will be less than or equal to. Okay, so let's check this one out. So we're talking about the mean weight. Okay. The mean weight more than 125 grams, which means that this is less than and equal to 125 grams. Again, your equal sign will always be part of H0. Okay, so when we're looking for setting up step 1, we need to look at the keywords in the exercise and figure out where, which symbol do we need according to the keywords. So this is a good page here to have in mind when you're trying to figure out how to set up H1 or H0. Okay, and this finishes the session on setting up the null and the alternate hypotheses. Thank you so much. Have a great day.